Yes. My dear, why I cannot hear? That's one thing. Why I can't hear, man? But still, it
Good day, everyone. This is Vice Consul Elvi de Guzman. I'd like to welcome you all to the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary's online forum education series featuring attorney Margarita Victorino, our labor attaché from the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, or POLO, in Vancouver, and Ms. Lilia de Guzman, Welfare Officer from the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWWA, in Vancouver. They will discuss different programs and services of POLO and OWWA for temporary foreign workers, or as we refer to them, the TFWs here in Canada. Before we begin, let us go over some reminders. Please be informed that this session is being live streamed on the PCG's Facebook page. We would like to remind the panelists and reactors to please keep their microphones on mute to minimize background noise during the webinar. We encourage our reactors to share their insights and ask questions, and we request that they speak and ask questions concisely. Please limit each intervention to no longer than 1 minute and 30 seconds. Finally, we also encourage our attendees to ask their questions and share their views and reactions by using the question and answer function of the webinar. Please keep your questions and comments on topic. On the screen now is the program for this session of the PCG's Online Forum Education Series. Consul General Zaldi Patron will deliver his opening remarks to formally start the session.
Thank you very much.
Right. Welcome, Consul General Zaldi. After Consul General Zaldi delivers his opening remarks in a few minutes, I will introduce our featured experts today. Labor Attaché Marge, who will refer to as Labat Marge, and Welfare Officer Lilia, who we will refer to as Well-Off Lilia, or Miss Lilia and Attorney Marge, before they proceed with their respective presentations. After both speakers have delivered their presentations, we will then open the floor for the question and answer forum. We have about 20 to 30 minutes for the featured speakers to address comments and answer questions. During the open forum, our three reactors will be given 2 minutes each to share their own insights. The first reactor will be Marjorie Newman from MCN Canada Immigration Consulting Incorporated. The second reactor.
Hello.
The second reactor is Maria Chelo Galay from Calgary Immigrant Women's Association, or CIWA. And the third and final reactor is Charissa A. Celis from the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society. Reactors may have further interventions where they can share their insights and ask further questions later throughout the open forum. This is where we request that they limit each succeeding intervention to no longer than 1 minute and 30 seconds. By 6:50 p.m., our speakers will give their respective 3-minute concluding observations and closing messages for the attendees and reactors, where they may summarize what they want us to remember as the key takeaways of the discussions. At 7 p.m., Consul General Zaldi will deliver his closing remarks and formally end this session of the PCG Online Forum Education Series. And now, to formally start this session, please welcome Consul General Zaldi Patron. He will be on air in a few minutes. I will just set him on the spotlight. Please give me a moment. Con Gen Zaldi, you now have the spotlight. Con Gen Zaldi, this is just to remind you that your microphone seems to be on mute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Consul LV, for the introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to the third online forum education series of the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary. I'm Consul General Zaldi Patron, and together with me today are all the personnel of the PCG, as well as our distinguished guests, participants, and friends. During this session, we will have the opportunity to know more about the programs and services of the Philippine Overseas Labor Office and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, both based in Vancouver, but has jurisdiction over the two provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, which are under the supervision of the PCG in Calgary. POLO and OWWA are the PCG's partners in promoting and protecting the rights of Filipino workers. From 2018 to mid-2020, we know that there were about 1,200 Filipinos who came to Alberta and Saskatchewan as TFWs. We are fortunate to have today Attorney Margarita Victorino, our labor attaché, and Ms. Lilia de Guzman, our welfare officer, who will explain to us the roles and mandates of their respective offices. The PCG began this online forum education series in May. During the past two sessions, we discussed the book of Dr. Glenda Bonifacio, the Filipino-Canadian professor at the University of Lethbridge, titled Pinay on the Prairies, and her other works about the Filipino migration. Last week, we had Filipino-Canadian psychiatrist Dr. Daisy Habido Artus, who explained to us how to understand our mental health amidst the pandemic. This time, the PCG wishes to focus on how the Philippine government, through POLO and OWWA, takes care of Filipino temporary workers. I would now like to give the floor back to Vice Consul LV, who will introduce our resource person for today. I do hope that we would all have a fruitful discussion today. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Consul General Zaldi. Today's first featured speaker is Attorney Margarita Victorino, our current labor attaché assigned to the POLO office in Vancouver. Attorney Victorino was assigned to POLO Vancouver as labor attaché in 2017 and has led that office since January 2019. Among her remarkable achievements is successfully negotiating the first ever government-to-government recruitment mechanism in North America in the form of a joint communique with the government of the territory of Yukon. Before joining the Labor Attaché Corps, Attorney Victorino worked as the senior manager of the Legal Services Department of the Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company and served as a senior solicitor at the Office of the Solicitor General. Her fields of expertise include, but are not limited to, labor and employment law, government relations and regulatory affairs, corporate and commercial law, contract drafting and review, family law, and court litigation. She is a graduate of Ateneo de Manila's Graduate School of Business, Far Eastern University, and the De La Salle University. We are pleased to have her here with us. Labat March, I will now place the spotlight on you.
Thank you, Vice Consul LV. Good afternoon, Consul General Zaldi Patron, and to our dear colleagues from the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary, our partners in Alberta as well. The Philippine Overseas Labor Office in Vancouver is privileged and honored to be part of the series of education webinars that will be hosted by the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary. It is not easy for us here in Vancouver to be working for and on behalf of the Filipino temporary foreign workers in Alberta and also in Saskatchewan. The distance makes the work a little bit more challenging. However, because of the active support and participation by our Consul General, whom we have been working with since he was the Deputy Consul General, our work has become a little bit more easier. And we also recognize as well the partners that we have grown to develop in the last couple of years. I think one of them is joining us as a speaker this afternoon as well. The Catholic group of Edmonton is, I think, joining us as one of the presenters or the speakers through an intervention. Assigned to me this afternoon is the task of explaining what essentially is the Philippine Overseas Labor Office. The Philippine Overseas Labor Office represents the Department of Labor and Employment here in the host country. We also represent not just the DOLE, but also the attached agencies of the department, including but not limited to the OWWA, or the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, and also the POEA, or the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. Essentially, the role of the POLO is to promote and implement the overseas employment programs of the department. The POLO is also tasked to ensure that the rights of the Filipino temporary foreign workers here in Canada are recognized and respected, and that their employment conditions are consistent with Philippine law, as well as the laws of the host country and the province or the territory where they may be working. In order to do that, the Philippine Overseas Labor Office undertakes what is called the process of employment contract verification. So the verification process ensures that the Canadian government requirements in hiring and deploying temporary foreign workers are complied with, as well as all the requirements of the Philippine government. Presently, there are two modes of recruiting a Filipino for employment here in Canada. The first one would be through the agency hiring mechanism, that is through a duly licensed Philippine recruitment agency, which is also similarly bonded with the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or the POEA. The next mode of mechanism would be through the direct hiring system. Under the Labor Code of the Philippines, foreign recruitment and deployment of Filipino workers are actually only focused primarily on or through the Philippine Recruitment Agency. And we have often been asked why this has been the mechanism that has been promoted and pursued by the Philippine government. Behind the Philippine Recruitment Agency hiring system is the creation of a fiction of law between the employer and the Philippine Recruitment Agency. In the eyes of the Philippine government, all the responsibilities that are to be undertaken by the foreign employer are jointly and solidarily shared by the Philippine Recruitment Agency. Now, why is this important? For any contractual breach by the employer, the worker has the recourse to proceed against the employer and similarly against the Philippine Recruitment Agency. The course of action can be simultaneous, it could be successive, but the recourse can be pursued proactively before the foreign government mechanism, and also through the administrative mechanisms available through the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or the POEA. The direct hiring system, on the other hand, is an exception to the hiring mechanism of the Philippine government. There are greater responsibilities expected of a foreign employer who or which may engage the deployment of a foreign worker, a Filipino foreign worker, directly. And why are there more stringent requirements when an employer decides to go through the direct hiring system? It is because the second layer of protection is done away with. In this case, the only recourse in case of a contractual breach would be against the employer. And this makes relief a little bit more challenging to pursue for our Filipino workers, especially so when they have already been repatriated to the Philippines. However, in Canada, we have noticed that there are a number of Canadian employers who have not deployed Filipino temporary foreign workers in the past and are therefore eligible to directly hire them without the need of going through a Philippine recruitment agency. Finally, the last role of the POLO is to monitor situations and policy developments in the host government, or which are happening here in Canada. Recently, this task has been quite challenging for us because the Philippine Overseas Labor Office in Vancouver has jurisdiction over the provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and two territories, the Northwestern Territories and the Yukon. Monitoring the daily COVID-19 numbers, monitoring outbreaks in the local job sites, monitoring the changes in the employment sector in the different industries where our workers are deployed has proven to be very challenging for us. However, we are always in close coordination with our respective consulates who have been most helpful in providing us updates directly received by them from the host government. These developments are then reported on a day-to-day basis through the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Employment, and they are communicated directly with or to the other government agencies, which are monitoring the repatriation of displaced Filipino workers, those who have not been able to leave the Philippines because of the different quarantine protocols in place. And the coordination is expected to improve the procedure of recruitment and deployment, as well as repatriation of workers in cases where repatriation may be necessary. We are also able to determine particular skills where displaced Filipino workers who are now in the Philippines may be considered. Recently, we have been in touch with one of our employers in Alberta in the meat processing facility where unfortunately an outbreak was declared. They have informed us that there may be a need to increase the recruitment and deployment of Filipino workers. This request has been conveyed to the Office of the Secretary, and we are now determining if there will be sufficient manpower available in the Philippines to supply the additional job order of this particular employer. Apart from those, the Philippine Overseas Labor Office also conducts regular job site inspections before we even proceed with the process of verification for new employers. We also undertake skills training, skills enhancement seminars. Right now, that has again proven to be a little bit difficult because of our inability to go to the different provinces and territories within our jurisdiction. And we have also followed the example of our Consul General in doing the seminars remotely via this form of Zoom conference. Apart from those, we also provide what we call as the post-arrival orientation seminar for newly arrived Filipino temporary foreign workers to Canada. Those who can and who were able to visit our office here in Vancouver did so upon their arrival in YVR. Unfortunately, because of the concerns of the pandemic, we have been constrained to conduct our post-arrival orientation seminar, or the PAOS, which actually complements the pre-departure orientation seminar that all workers are required to undertake before their deployment to any foreign country in the Philippines. Is done to orient our workers of what they should expect upon arriving in Canada. It is also an opportunity for our office to inform the workers that should there be any concern, any issue, any question while they may be in their respective job site, that they can and they must coordinate with our office. It is also a way for us to develop a communication with our workers, even if they will not be working within or in job sites within our immediate access. Apart from the PAOS, the trainings for workers, the job site inspections, our welfare officers officer who happens to be a director of the OWWA, also provides counseling, reintegration, orientation for workers if they would choose to remain in the Philippines. Our welfare officer will be talking about the OWWA programs and the benefits of active OWWA members shortly after I think I complete my presentation. So in a nutshell, while the POLO may be a little bit remote at this time, we hope that through the Consul General and the Consulate in Calgary, we can still bring our services to the workers in Alberta and in Saskatchewan through similar activities such as this. As the Consul General mentioned, between 2018 and the first 2 quarters of 2020, the Philippine Overseas Labor Office has actually caused the verification of 2,124 employment contracts. So that translates to 2,124 deployed Filipino temporary foreign workers to Alberta and Saskatchewan. Finally, I think I would like to speak a little about a recent financial assistance program that was launched by the Department of Labor and Employment. We have been very, very fortunate that our Consul General has been very proactive in informing our Filipino temporary foreign workers in Alberta and in Saskatchewan of this financial assistance program. So this financial assistance program was called AKAP. Filipino workers around the world who experienced displacement because of or by reason of the pandemic were actually extended a financial assistance, a one-time financial assistance in the amount of $200 US, or roughly that translates to about 238 Canadian dollars. Recently, we are almost approaching our maximum capacity for this program. The greater number of the beneficiaries came from the province of Alberta. We're about to hit 300 temporary foreign worker beneficiaries in Alberta. To us, that signaled the fact that there were a significant number of Filipino temporary foreign workers significantly affected by the pandemic. And this scenario has actually been conveyed to the Office of the Secretary as well. And we hope that in the coming weeks, if not months, we can talk more about the programs that will be coming from the department to address the issue or somehow alleviate the concerns of our workers in Alberta and also in Saskatchewan. So basically, Consul LV, that wraps up my presentation on the role of the POLO in the recruitment and deployment of Filipino temporary foreign workers here in Canada.
Thank you, Labat Marge. We will now soon hear from our next speaker, Welfare Officer Lilia. But before I do, let me just briefly display for everyone the profile of Labat Marge, which I was unable to display earlier. Hold on. On screen, you will now see Labat Marge's profile. For those who just joined us, you could always repeat this. As well as for those who were listening in earlier, you could check her profile here if you would like to, so you would be reminded what her background is. And now for our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Lilia de Guzman, who is the Philippine Welfare Officer at the OWWA office in Vancouver. She is in charge of implementing OWWA programs such as repatriation programs, airport assistance, training programs, and country-specific projects for OFWs, counseling, and other services relative to the protection of overseas Filipino workers. Her previous foreign assignments include Milan, Italy, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. When she was in the Philippines, she served as a director at the OWWA main office. She holds a diploma in development management from the Development Academy of the Philippines, an MBA from the Asian Institute of Management and Economics, and earned her master's and bachelor's degrees from the University of Santo Tomas and Lyceum of the Philippines, respectively. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Lilia, who I will now put on spotlight. Ms. Lilia, I would like to ask you to unmute your microphone.
Yeah.
You are now on air.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Jen Zalbi, Patron, and thank you very much, Vice Consul de Guzman. I will now start my discussion with the OWWA programs by sharing the screen. Okay, please allow me to use the screen and share the screen. Okay. Oh, wala. Asan? Asan yung share mo? Share mo.
Hi, would you like to try again?
Yeah, wait.
Lilia, you should be able to now.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it now. You may wish to put it on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. The OWWA is the lead government agency tasked to promote and protect the welfare and well-being of overseas Filipino workers. Actually, we are a membership institution. We are also an attached agency of the Department of Labor and Employment. That's why here in Vancouver, we are under the Philippine Overseas Labor Office. There are 34 overseas welfare officers across the world, which includes Vancouver, Canada, and Toronto, Canada. We have also 17 regional welfare officers in the 17 regional jurisdiction of the Philippines. Here are our programs and benefits. We categorize it into 4. First, we have number 1, we have the social benefits program, which includes disability and dismemberment benefits. The OFW can claim up to a maximum of 100,000 for accident-related injuries sustained during membership validity. We have the death and burial benefit, which means that an OFW who is an active OWWA member can claim a benefit of 100,000 if death is due to natural causes and 200,000 if it is due to accident, and an additional 20,000 as burial benefits. We have also the supplemental medical assistance for OFW, and we call it MedPlus. These are given to OWWA active members who are afflicted with dreaded diseases and were hospitalized. This is a financial assistance equivalent to PhilHealth benefits under each case rate system, but it should not exceed to 50,000 pesos. And the other one is the Welfare Assistance Program. The Welfare Assistance Program is given to OFWs who are affected by calamities, or then we have also the bereavement assistance, the medical assistance, and the relief assistance. We have also the education and training assistance programs for OFW dependents. We have scholarship for dependents. The scholarship for dependents includes 60,000 financial assistance per school year for a 4 to 5 years baccalaureate course. We have also the education and livelihood assistance program. These are given to the dependents of deceased active OWWA member. These are educational assistance to qualified dependent until college and a 15,000 worth of livelihood package for the surviving spouse. We have the Skills for Employment Scholarship Program. This is a technical vocational training assistance up to 14,500 per course to qualified active OWWA members or their dependents at any TESDA accredited training centers and other government training institutions. Here in Canada, we have the on-site welfare case management. We are tasked to address and resolve the OFW problems and concerns such as psychosocial counseling, mediation or conciliation with the employer, airport assistance, hospital or workplace visitation, and welfare case management or pursuing a labor or welfare case against employer in the host country. We have the repatriation program. This repatriation program is also under the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Labor and Employment. This is the way of bringing back distressed OFWs or human remains to the Philippines. OWWA also has post-repatriation services such as airport assistance, temporary shelter at the OWWA halfway home, psychosocial counseling, transportation services and fares for their onward travel to their respective provinces, medical referrals, or other services. We have also the reintegration program. Here, on site, we do some seminars, financial literacy trainings, entrepreneurial development training, and other technical skills trainings. In the Philippines, we have the Enterprise Development and Loan Program. This is a business loan program where the OFW can loan from a minimum of 100,000 up to a maximum of 2 million. If it is a group loan, the group of OFWs can loan up to a maximum of 5 million. This is in partnership with the Land Bank of the Philippines. We have the Balik Pinas, Balik Hanap Buhay. This is a financial assistance worth 20,000 for distressed OFW or displaced workers. How to be an OWWA membership? How to be an active OWWA member, sorry. The worker has to pay $25 or its equivalent in Canadian dollars to be an OWWA member. The validity of OWWA membership is 2 years upon the payment of the worker or upon enrollment. We have also the inactive OWWA member, those workers with expired OWWA membership. The non-OWWA member, those who did not register as OWWA members. Yung po bang mga nandito na worker natin, active OWWA member ka po ba? Kung gusto niyo po, pwede po kayong kung yung mga taga Vancouver, pwede po kayong mag-personal appearance sa office or tumawag or mag-email sa OWWA Vancouver. Eto po, dahil po sa COVID, pwede na po ang hindi magpunta ng personal ang mga gustong mag-OWWA member. Pwede po silang mag-email sa amin, magpadala ng complete name and date of birth para po ma-check namin sa aming database kung kayo ay OWWA member or kung valid pa yung OWWA membership nyo. Ngayon po, ang mga membership requirements po ay ang mga sumusunod: passport copy, proof of employment. Ang proof of employment, pwede po siyang work permit, pwede ring payslip, or any proof na may trabaho po kayo. And meron po kaming application form na pina-fill upan. After, kung ito po ay hindi personal, ang OWWA Vancouver po will video call the OFW is applying for the membership. And then they can pay the OWWA membership via Interapp. The official receipt will be emailed to you upon payment. Please see our contact details. Ito po yung office address namin. Ito po yung office number namin. At ito po yung aming email address, vancouver@owwa.gov.ph. Gusto ko lang po ilawin na Magkakaiba po ng benefits yung active OWWA members at saka inactive OWWA members. Pero pati po inactive, meron din pong mga benefits. Ito lang po at maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Welfare Officer Lilia. I will now, would it be okay if I ask you, there you go. I was gonna ask you to end sharing your video, your presentation. May I ask the panelists and the reactors to turn on their videos so everyone would be able to see you? And I will now put everyone on so everyone could see you. You're all on air. We will now invite our reactors for their insights and possible questions. We will begin with Marjorie and then Chelo and then Sharissa will round up the reactors' initial interventions. So first up is Marjorie. Hold on, let me just put the spotlight on you for a moment.
Mute mo.
Video.
Thank you very much. Consul General Zeldi Patron, Vice Consul de Guzman, to our distinguished speakers, Attorney Margarita Victorino and Ma'am Lilia de Guzman. First of all, I'd like to thank and congratulate PCG Calgary, POLO, and OWWA for organizing this very informative event. So I have 3 questions for. I'd like to address these questions to Attorney Margarita Victorino. First question po is, what is POLO's response to COVID-19? So in terms of employment contract verification. So normally we submit documents that require original signatures. So at this time, would it be possible to submit by email or scan copies rather than sending it by mail with the original signatures of the employer? Second question po is what happens to temporary foreign workers who change employers while in Canada but have been issued previously OECs? Does this mean the temporary foreign worker have to go through the whole process with the new employer? And finally, under Canada's new home child care pilot and home support worker pilot launched by IRCC in June 2018, IRCC will issue a 3-year open work permit to the foreign worker. So how can POLO verify the contract, or how do we go about the employment contract verification if the document that will be issued to the temporary foreign worker would be a 3-year open work permit?
Hi, Marjorie, your audio is a bit low. Would you like to just repeat your key messages, the parts of your intervention that you would like to emphasize so people could hear you?
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that. So
Okay.
I'm just going to go directly to the question. So the first question would be, what is is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's much better. Hold
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the first question would be, what is POLO's response to COVID-19 before the normal procedure is to submit original documents, so that requires original signature from the employer. So would it be possible to send all documentation by email? Are they going to accept scanned copies? Next question would be, what happens to the temporary foreign workers who changed employers while in Canada but have been issued previously OECs? Does the temporary foreign worker have to go through the whole process with the new employer? And finally, under Canada's new home child care pilot and home support worker pilot launched by IRCC as of June 2018, IRCC will issue a 3-year open work permit to the foreign worker. So how do we go about the employment contract verification when the document that will be issued is open work permit for 3 years? Or would it be automatic that the employment contract verification would be the employer that made the offer of employment? Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Attorney Marge and Miss Lilia. Please feel free to answer Marjorie's question.
Yes. Hello, Marjorie. It's wonderful to see you again, although I'm seeing you remotely. I hope I can see you personally soon. In reply to your query, number 1, we do not require personal submission of verification requirements to our office, given the constraints and the protocols that we must all observe because of the pandemic. However, we still need the employers and their representatives here in Canada to mail us the complete set of requirements. Why is this so? Because we need to stamp, verify each and every documentary requirement and return the verified documents back to the employer so it can be submitted by the worker to the POEA for issuance of the Overseas Employment Certificate or the OEC. We were actually a little bit surprised because our verification has started to pick up since we opened our regular business hours here in Vancouver. We have also received quite a number of inquiries through the email. The Consul General and I were saying that we have seen a noticeable drop in our verification. For the same period in 2019, we were actually able to verify from January to June about 558. For the same period this year, we were only able to verify 293. But we have received information from various employers that they will be submitting the documents. If not, most of the documents are already in the mail. So we will be still requesting the employers to submit mailed copies of all the requirements so they could be stamped verified. As regards your second question, workers who are already here in Canada and who had to change employers, their second employment contract need not be submitted to the Philippine Overseas Labor Office for verification. We have taken this position because we know that there are a number of displaced workers. And if we still require them to submit to the POLO these second employment contracts, they will face delay. They may face a withdrawal of the employment offer. And we do not want our workers to be facing those concerns. But we do remind them that number one, to make sure that despite the transfer of employment, that their OWWA membership remains active. Number two, that they advise our office of the change in the employment so that we know where they are. And if there is any concern which may arise out of that transfer of employment, that there will still be an active communication between the POLO and the concerned workers. So there is no need for contract verification for temporary foreign workers, Filipino temporary foreign workers who are already in Canada. Okay, as regards your final question, the home care pilot program, those applicants entering this new pathway will not be covered by the verification requirement anymore. We were able to convince the POEA Administrator Bernard Olalia, that this new pilot is something out of the box. But we have to be proactive in recognizing that there are now numerous streams of labor migration. And we cannot impede that if we put in place the recruitment requirements that did not actually envision all these changes. So the POEA will be releasing, I think in a couple of weeks, the public advisory informing temporary foreign workers who may have or who are about to file their application under these new programs that they will no longer be covered by the requirements of contract verification. There will be no OEC required for these applicants upon their departure from their last point of disembarkation in the Philippines. However, we are awaiting the CFO guidelines because the CFO may opt to issue a certification, but that will not entail contract verification anymore. That will not entail having to go through a Philippine recruitment agency. It may simply just entail the conduct or the undertaking of a pre-departure orientation seminar for these applicants and or their dependents who may or who may eventually join these applicants once they arrive in Canada. So I hope that sufficiently answers your question. We will be releasing the public advisory and the guidelines as soon as we have received the same, but this is something we can already share with you upon the authority of the POEA administrator.
Right. Marjorie looks very happy to hear all those answers. Were all your questions answered, Marjorie, or are there other parts that you would like to be addressed?
Oh, no. Attorney Victorino answered all the
Oh,
questions.
Marjorie, we
Thank you
can't
very
hear
much.
you
For
again.
the last part,
Marjorie, I think your microphone might be a bit muffled. Would you like to check?
for Filipinos whose application under the Home Child Care Pilot and Home Support Worker are being processed right now. Thank you very much, the Philippine government, for responding to our call. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marjorie. And now on to our next reactor. That would be Cello from Siwa, a very familiar face to the PCG. Cello, so you're on. I'll put you on the spotlight. Please be reminded to unmute your mic when you speak.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon. Yeah. So yeah, first is I would like to thank the Office of the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary for inviting me to this education forum, and the speakers as well. And that was really all the information was very elaborate, and it's just that like I'm a bit confused as to what to say and what to ask, because I would like to explain that as coordinator of the Filipino Community Development Program at the Calgary Immigrant Women's Association, my main task is to give services to all members of the Filipino community, regardless of their immigration status. Meaning to say, even the temporary foreign workers can come and see me, and you know, as much as I can do, would like to extend support to them. But then the main target of my program is on the reunification of families. So when I listened to the presentation of attorney Margarita Victorino and Miss Lilia de Guzman, and I was like, it actually focused more on the temporary foreign workers. So does it mean that, my first question is, does it mean that your services will stop once the Filipino worker will turn its status to permanent residence? And that's my first question. So are you extending only services to TFW only and no more to permanent residents? And the second one is a follow-up, because mine is the families are reunified. That means here comes the Filipino contract worker, and once he changed or she changed her status to PR, so he or she can now sponsor the family to join. So they're now reunified. So that's my role as a coordinator. So my second question, I am fascinated with the post-arrival orientation seminar that was discussed by attorney Margarita Victorino. Is that purely for the temporary foreign worker, or do you include the families? Or do you offer post-arrival orientation to reunified families? So
Right.
because because that's my job. That's my job. So and then I would that's the services that I give to Filipino families. That's all. So
Miss Cello, hello, good afternoon.
hi.
It's a pleasure to meet you remotely. You know, the government services, they do not stop. They do not stop for as long as the individual remains to be a Filipino. However,
Very good. Yeah.
it is a different office which has jurisdiction over the rendition of the services concerned. So the DOLE, because primarily it is tasked to ensure recruitment and deployment, our jurisdiction and the extent of our services extends to the time when they are still temporary foreign workers.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
the services of the government, the assistance, the protection, continues through the Department of Foreign Affairs, through our ATN officer or the Assistance to National Officer of the Philippine Consulate General. Hindi po
Okay.
nagtatapos yung pagtulong
Okay.
natin, yung serbisyo, except that the jurisdiction is now transferred from the DOLE to the
From the DOLE
DFA. But
to-
there is very
Okay.
close, yes, but there is very close coordination between the POLO and the PCG. As a matter of fact, in all our activities for Alberta and Saskatchewan, we are never without our Consul General and the rest of the
Yeah.
consular team.
Mhm.
So, dire-diretso naman po yun, except that there are certain funds, example, the OWWA membership fund and the OWWA financial assistance, meron po tayo talaga para sa mga manggagawa dahil nanggagaling yun dun sa OWWA fund. No? Meron din po tayong mga financial assistance. Yung ating pong AKAP na na-mention ko kanina, when the AKAP was envisioned, the $200 financial assistance, no? Nung na-envision po ito, what was in mind were actually workers, no? Temporary foreign workers, at least for Canada. But we made representations with the office of our secretary and we told him, meron po kasi tayong nakararaming permanent residents. No?
Yes. Yes.
So papaano ho sila? They face the same displacement. They are encountering the almost the same challenges. Papaano ho yun?
You extend one to families.
Yes, we did. We also extended the financial assistance to Filipino even if they were already permanent residents. Ang sinasabi lang ho namin sa kanila, hindi lang ho namin alam kung gaano pa katagal tatakbo yung programa because limited din po naman yung ating financial capability to continue the program. Pero ang sabi ho namin, for as long as you are a worker here in Canada and you were displaced, the AKAP will be extended to you even if you are no longer a temporary foreign worker. So dire-diretso naman po yung ating pagbibigay ng serbisyo. As regards your question po on PAOS, if it covers arriving family members, yung sa amin po kasi, yung PAOS namin or yung post-arrival orientation seminar, it's actually an obligation that is undertaken by the employer. The employer undertakes that upon the arrival of the worker, and that is clearly stated in the undertaking that is signed by the employer, na they will create an avenue for us to get in touch with the worker after the worker has arrived and has settled in. So ngayon po, hindi namin pa sakop yung mga dependents because at the time that they arrive, ang status pa po nila ay temporary foreign workers. So hindi pa ho talaga nila kasama. But there is an office, no po, yung ating CFO, which undertakes the pre-departure orientation seminar. Yung ating CFO po, they actually prepare a pre-departure orientation seminar that is now country-specific. Kasi sabi po namin dati na hindi pwedeng isang kahon lang yung pre-departure natin kasi iba-iba yung haharapin ng mga dumarating na Pilipino, iba yung haharapin nila kung babagsak sila sa US, iba yung haharapin nila pag bumagsak sila sa Canada, iba rin yung haharapin nila pag bumagsak sila sa in other countries. So we were luckily able to request naman po for that. So the pre-departure orientation seminar po is now country-specific for all Filipinos and their family members who will be leaving for migration.
Yeah.
I don't know lang po if our welfare officer can add to that relating to
Yeah, because
um,
program really focused on the reunification of the family.
opo.
Mhm. So that's the one. Yeah.
Hello po.
Well,
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hello po.
Hi.
Hi. Actually, ang OWWA po, talagang pag OWWA members lang. Pero may mga PR po na dating OWWA member na sila po ay inactive members na ngayon. Mayroon din po kaming programa sa mga inactive members. In fact, yung isa naming program, yung bereavement, kaya lang hindi siya ganun kalaki, hindi siya 100,000. Pwede po siya sa inactive OWWA member, binibigyan po ng 20,000 pesos sa atin sa Pilipinas. Ang tawag po doon, bereavement.
Okay.
Doon po sa mga inactive. Mas malaki nga lang po talaga yung nakukuha nung mga active members. Aside from that, alam po ito ng ating Consul General sa DFA in times of war. Pag po may gera at nag-repatriate po ang DFA, DOLE at OWWA, wala pong pinipili yon. Basta Pilipino ililigtas. I-advance lang po namin yung payment. Tsaka na lang po kami maniningil. So, hindi naman po ganun ka black and white na talagang pag-OWWA member po. Pero as sinabi ko po kanina, nakalagay po kasi yun sa batas namin na talagang ang OWWA ay membership institution. The Board of Trustees po, meron silang power na magbigay din sa mga hindi member basta po approve ng board. Nandun po yun sa bagong batas ng OWWA noong 2016. Pero kailangan po ng board approval. Hindi po kami pwedeng mag-decide. Yun po.
Okay. Maraming salamat.
All right, thank you. Thank you to Shelo, to Attorney Marge, and to Miss Lilia. And now we will have Sharissa, our final reactor. Sharissa is from the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society. She's an active member of the Filipino community here in Calgary. Sharissa, please unmute your microphone and I'll put you now.
Okay, magandang gabi na po dito in Calgary. So thank you so much for all the information. I am very pleased to hear the many benefits that our temporary foreign workers are getting from the Philippine government, especially from these two agencies. I just wish that during the time of my dad, when he was still a temporary foreign worker somewhere, meron na rin po ito. So that's why malapit po sa puso ko ang mga TFWs because I am a product of a temporary foreign worker. My dad worked for over 20 years outside the Philippines. And so sabi ko nga po, when I came here in Canada, I'll try my best to be of help to people, and especially the TFWs. And whenever I give a presentation to TFWs, I always remind them that I am a product of a temporary foreign worker who was away for about 20 years or over 20 years. And alam ko ang nararamdaman ng pamilya na walang tatay for some time, na mas madalas po na wala ang tatay even during Christmas. So at any rate, as I said earlier, I am also giving presentations on some immigration matters or topics, and even family reunification or family wellness presentation to our Filipinos here in Alberta, not just in Calgary. Prior to COVID, umiikot din po ako sa Alberta to give this kind of presentations. And marami po akong mga tanong na nakukuha galing po sa ating mga manggagawa na naandito. And ang una ko pong tanong sana is about the repatriation program. I know na the OWWA and the POLO, you are in coordination about this repatriation program, but I'm more concerned about the repatriation of the remains. Okay, so there are times po kasi na marami ang nanghihingi ng mga tulong dito sa amin at sinasabi po na hindi makakauwi or nahihirapan umuwi because wala silang pampalipad doon sa body at gusto nilang makauwi sa pamilya nila. And so I know that OWWA is a membership institution. So does that mean that if you are not a member, hindi po pwedeng humingi ng tulong sa OWWA? Or to put it on a different perspective, to whom can they ask help in case there is a temporary foreign worker here who unfortunately, namatay po, and then unfortunately, hindi rin po member ng OWWA, pwede po bang lumapit, POLO or OWWA, other than the Philippine Consulate General's Office? And then, paano po, or how do you connect to the non-members? Because upon hearing all the benefits that these two agencies are giving to the TFWs, I think it's kind of a complete package, and they are really protected by the Philippine government. But the thing is, maybe there are others who are not members or who may not be aware, or maybe those membership has already expired and became inactive. How do you reach them? How do you promote membership to OWWA? Is this something that you promote actively na talagang kinakailangan mag-member? I know it is not mandatory, right? So this is something voluntary, but how do you promote it to them para mag-member? Because upon hearing all these benefits, maganda talaga. I mean, they can get a lot from being a member. Now, another thing is about the undocumented foreign workers. Nakakalungkot po, pero marami pa rin po ang mga undocumented foreign workers dito sa atin, especially dito po sa Alberta. So I've been going around with this COVID together with the Fiesta Filipino, and then we have been meeting some temporary foreign workers outside of Calgary as far as Stettler, kung saan-saan po rin kami nakakarating. Minsan po kasama namin si Conjen. And meron din po akong mga titisod na mga tanong mula po doon sa mga wala ng papel. We don't want to condone them, but the thing is, mga Pilipino rin po sila. So is there a specific agency that they can go to na hindi sila matatakot? Because when they come here to Canada as a TFW, ang isip nila is maging permanent. Right? Hindi naman yan aalis para lang maging temporary. Although I always would remind them, you are here as a temporary resident. So you may or you may not qualify to become permanent residents. But the thing is, dahil may pamilya sila, sinasara na nila yung isip nila doon. Gusto nila talagang maging permanent sila. And they will do their best. Kahit kapit sa patilim, gagawin nila para maging permanent resident sila dito and para madala nila yung family dito. So, in the process, whether unintentional, okay, there comes a point na nawawalan sila ng papel. So napapaso yung papel nila. Hindi man nila kagagawan yun, pero dumarating yung panahon na yun. Saan sila pwedeng lumapit? Na hindi sila matatakot, na hindi sila i-condemn, na may mga kilala rin po ako dito na kahit sila walang papel, sige pa rin yung pagpapadalhan nila ng pera sa Pilipinas dahil gusto nilang mabuhay yung family nila doon. But the thing is, they don't have a regular employer here. Actually, dahil nga wala silang papel, sinasabi natin mga under the table. Okay? So, okay lang siguro. But the thing is, we really don't want to condone yung ginagawa nilang yon dahil syempre, it's not also fair for the Canadian government. So, the reason why you're here, you're supposed to work here with the proper papers, with the proper documents. Kailangan meron kayong valid work permit. But then, yun nga po, hindi naman natin sila masisisi kung dumating yung pagkakataon na medyo mawalan sila ng papel. And unfortunately, kung minsan po nagiging daan yan para maabuso po sila at meron pong iba na ginagawang dahilan yan para mas lalo silang hingan pa ng pera kahit wala na silang pera. So anyway, so yun lang po ang tanong ko is, saan sila po pwedeng pumunta? Paano sila matutulungan? And one last thing po is, because of this pandemic, okay, marami na pong mga employers ang mahihirapan na mag-justify na kailangan mo ng TFW dito. Dahil maraming mga Canadians and permanent residents na walang trabaho. And so the government, provincial, federal, may announce sooner than later that they may suspend the temporary foreign worker program. So is there any plan just in case it will happen, will there be any plan? Will there be any support from the Philippine government in case na magkaroon ng repatriation naman ng mga Pilipino pabalik sa Pilipinas? Dahil po dito sa announcement na to. So, I think that's it. Salamat po.
Charissa, Miss Lilia, Attorney Marge, and Conjen Zaldi, you may wish to jump in and address Charissa's questions. I'm sure very relevant, and I'm sure many of our viewers would be interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Okay. May I, Attorney Marge and Lilia? Yeah. So I just would like to react to Charissa's question regarding the undocumented Filipinos and or those who are out of status. To whom should they go to if they need help? It should be the Philippine Consulate General, Charissa. So if they're not temporary foreign workers, they need assistance, even if they are permanent resident, because they are not under the Department of Labor and Employment anymore, then they should contact the PCG for any assistance that they will need. And I can share with you, since 2018, when I arrived here, I can speak for my experience until this time. We've assisted many of our fellow Filipinos already. We have repatriated, I think, about 6 individuals already. That using the government fund. Yung sinasabi kanina ni Attorney Victorino na Assistance to National Fund, that is managed by the Department of Foreign Affairs. So sa DFA, there is this ATN fund, but then as always, it should be on a case-to-case basis, depending on the merit of the case. We can endorse the case to the Department of Foreign Affairs, and it will always be subject also to the availability of funds. For the repatriation of remains, yes, we have also paid for the repatriation of remains of some of our kababayan. And even those who got hospitalized and they do not have enough funds, they also sought assistance from us, and some of them we were able to help. Not to entirely pay the hospital bill of that person, but at least give some partial assistance for the family. Same is true with the burial assistance. Buried here, the Filipino incurred some expenses, and they did not have any regular work, and they asked for our help. We were able to help them. In fact, for COVID-19, those who were not eligible for DOLE ACAP, we were also able to extend some financial assistance for some of our kababayan. I think we were able to give to 27 right now, and we have about 10 that we will be submitting this week or next week to the DFA for its consideration. And in fact, another service that we do is whereabouts. Some Filipinos na hindi na alam ng family nila kung nasan sila dito, they also ask our help. And there were, I think, 2 cases when we were able to help the family trace the whereabouts of a family member. And we were able to send home one of those 2 Filipinos. The other one did not want to go home. So just to answer your question, you can always refer our kababayan who are out of status to the Philippine Consulate General for any assistance. Thank you, Charissa.
Right. Miss Lilia and Attorney Marge, if you have answers, if you have something to say, particularly maybe Miss Lilia. Oh, I see Marjorie is raising her hand. I'll put you on spotlight later, Marjorie. But earlier, Charissa did ask about the mandatory membership.
Yes.
For is that for OWWA, Charissa? Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is for OWWA.
Yeah. Actually, the OWWA membership is not mandatory. Is it voluntary? And during our outreach programs, we conducted outreach programs in Edmonton, in all our areas of jurisdiction, we usually get the OWWA membership there and we promote our OWWA membership. However, during COVID, you can now email us and we can do it through Interact if those who are interested, as long as they have the passport and they are employed. We need the proof of employment, copy of the passport, copy of the proof of employment, and the form. We can email the form, then they will just sign it. Then they can, the membership fee is $25. Now the conversion is in CAD is 33 CAD, and they can mail it through Interact. Regarding your question about the distressed workers, if he or she is undocumented, together with Conscience Albi, if I remember it right, the one who drowned in the river, he is not an OWWA member, but we were able to give them benefit through the approval of the Board of Trustees. Our Consul General recommended it to OWWA, and OWWA, through the Board of Trustees headed by the Chairman, Secretary Bello, and our Administrator, they gave money to the deceased, the survivor, to the spouse. That is, he is an undocumented worker.
Teresa also asked about what repatriation services would be available. This applies to both OWWA and the PCG. In the event that Canada would have to suspend the hiring of TFWs and the TFWs here would have to go home. Would that be an option? Is that a service that's being offered by OWWA?
Vice Consul LV, I think I can answer that perhaps initially, and just request additional inputs from our Consul General and of Lilia. Filipino temporary foreign workers who are bound to work for job sites here in Canada, their respective employers are required to sign an addendum to the employment contract. And under the addendum, the employer undertakes the repatriation of the Filipino temporary foreign worker. In skills where the workers have or are given insurance coverage, we demand that the insurance coverage be more than sufficient to defray the cost of repatriation. So in case we may have workers here, already in Canada po ha, kasi yung repatriation ang pinag-uusapan natin. So ang take-off point natin, nandito na sila sa Canada at kinakailangan nilang makabalik pa tungo ng Pilipinas. The repatriation po is a primary obligation of the Canadian employer. And this is something that we are in the process of lobbying with our counterparts in ESDC for them to recognize. Ang sinasabi po kasi namin, lalo na for the low-income skill set, kailangan talaga nila yan. And this should form part of Schedule 1 when the employers apply for an LMIA. But if it is not, for those employers who are going through the POLO verification process, they are required to sign an addendum where the primary obligation of the employer states that in the event of death, incapacity, or any form of circumstance whereby the employment cannot proceed as originally envisioned by the employer and the employee, the obligation to repatriate the temporary foreign worker falls with the employer. Ngayon po, kapag sinamampalad at wala ng kapasidad na magpauwi yung employer, this is where the Philippine Recruitment Agency's obligation arises. We demand that the local manning agencies cause the repatriation, the immediate repatriation of the workers. Ganun din po yan kay buhay o sa sinamampalad, hindi na ho. Yung mga workers ho natin na kinakailangang makauwi, obligasyon po yan ng employer. Kung hindi na po kaya ng employer for whatever reason, financial considerations, reverses in business, etc., then our office has recourse to proceed against the Philippine Recruitment Agency. Kapag tumanggi po na i-repatriate ng Philippine Recruitment Agency ang mga workers na ganito, we run after their bond with the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. We act against the bond. So yan po yung level ng ating or the succession of remedies, no? Employer, Philippine Recruitment Agency. Kung talaga kung wala pa, tinitignan natin kung eto ba ay mga OWWA members. Kung hindi pa rin po, then we look into, as our Consul General mentioned, the possibility of causing the repatriation of these displaced Filipinos through the ATN fund. Again, depending on the availability of the funds. So we are not without remedy and we are not without recourse. May level lang po tayo ng relief na tinitignan dahil hindi naman ho lahat kayang sagutin, no po, ng ating mga ahensya.
Thank you, Attorney Marge. These remedies in the contract, they should be present in the contracts of all Filipino workers globally, right? This is not just limited to North America.
Yes. Yes, the repatriation clause is a clause that is mandatory. It's a mandatory provision for all employment contracts covering Filipino workers wherever they may be deployed.
Very cool. Yes, that's very comforting and reassuring to know. Marjorie was raising her hand earlier. Marjorie, please feel free to share your thoughts.
Thank you. Actually, mine is just a comment of Ms. Sherry's comments earlier with regards to suspension of a temporary foreign worker program. So actually, on June 29, 2020, the Premier of Alberta, Honorable Jason Kenney, his exact words were that the provincial government will request the federal government to add occupations on the existing RTP or refusal to process list on the LMIA application. Kasi po ngayon, there are 24 occupations on the refusal to process list in Alberta. Wherein, kahit gustuhin man ng employer sa Alberta, mag-hire ng temporary foreign worker, hindi po pwede kung yung occupation is andun sa listahan. So my understanding also, which can be found on the Alberta Recovery Plan, page 6, and I'd like to quote that the provincial government will ask the federal government to remove most occupational categories under the temporary foreign worker program for Alberta. So, hindi naman po, my understanding is hindi naman po siya suspension totally. So, it's just, they're just asking, the provincial government will ask, they have already asked actually, kasi nakakatanggap na po kami ng information from Service Canada, yung nagpa-process ng LMIA, na na-receive na nila yung request ng provincial government na magdagdag ng mga occupations under the temporary foreign worker program sa Alberta doon sa refusal to process list sa Service Canada. And having said that po, the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program, the provincial government has also requested the federal government to reduce the number of certificates that will be issued this year to 4,000. And finally, magdadagdag po sila, which they will announce anytime. The provincial government of Alberta will launch 2 programs, namely yung Foreign Graduate Startup Visa Program and the International Student Entrepreneurship Program. So hopefully po, comment lang to Ms. Cherise na totally hindi siya totally suspension of the temporary foreign worker program. But we will soon find out because we will have a town hall meeting with Alberta's Minister of Immigration in August 13. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that, Marjorie. Would anyone like to share their thoughts after that or none? We're not receiving any questions from the attendees, so that's probably a sign that your presentations were very clear and understandable, so there's no need for questions. But if they do, everyone, our viewers on Facebook, you can always contact the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary. You can email us at calgarypcg@gmail.com. And we can just convey your questions to the POLO and OWWA offices in Vancouver. In view of that, we can start closing the program. We would like to invite our speakers to give their concluding observations and closing messages for the attendees and reactors, where they may summarize what they would like us to remember as the key takeaways from their discussions. We will start with Attorney Marge. I will put you now on the spotlight. Labat Marge, you're on air.
On behalf of our team here in Vancouver, we would like to thank our Consul General Patron, and the rest of the consular personnel and staff for hosting this webinar. Hindi ho kami masyadong kilala sa Alberta at sa Saskatchewan dahil wala ho kaming physical presence dyan. But as I have said this many times in the past, and I would like to take this opportunity to say it again this afternoon. Our Consul General has been very proactive in making our services known to Filipinos within his jurisdiction. So wala man po kami dyan. Sana po huwag po kayo mag-atubiling mag-reach out din po sa amin. Dito man po kami sa Vancouver. Meron po kaming email. I think our welfare officer shared our contact details with all of you earlier. Medyo updated na din po kami. Meron din po kaming Facebook page where we hope we can also share this webinar. So workers po can get in touch with us by email, by call through our landline, and also through Facebook Messenger. Wala lang po kami sa Twitter. We are also not on the other platforms, but sana po wag kayong mag-atubiling lumapit sa amin kung kayo po ay may mga katanungan o may mga problema. I think I would want to make clear, no, ang serbisyo po ng ating gobyerno, hindi po yan nagtatapos. Hindi ho din yan naaapektuhan ng Estado. Totoo po yung sinabi sa atin ni Ms. Sherisa, no? Marami po sa ating mga Pilipino takot lumapit sa amin, lalo na po kung wala na po silang mga estado dito sa Canada. Sana po mabawasan o mawala na yung takot na iyon pagkatapos ng activity natin na ito. Hindi niyo po kami kalaban. We are on the same corner po. And we will always be your kakampi. Hindi man ho tayo nagkakakita o nagkakasama that often, lalo na ngayon po because of the pandemic. But rest assured that our office is open to all of you, documented, undocumented, OWWA member, not OWWA member, merong OEC, walang OEC. Ang pagtulong po namin ay hindi namimili. So again, we would like to thank Marjorie, Sherisa, and Cello for joining us this afternoon. We hope that we will be able to have an opportunity to meet you all in person. I'm sure our programs will be more effective and efficient if we are able to sit down with all of you in the future. So on behalf of our team here in Vancouver, we would like to thank all of you. And of course, our Consul General and Vice Consul LV, who has been very patient with us. Kami po ni Welo, hindi ko kami techie. We were online at 4 p.m. dahil natakot kami dahil baka magkamali kami ng pindot, hindi kami makapasok sa webinar. But she's been very patient with us, and our warm regards to all of you. Mag-iingat po kayong lahat. Sa awa ng Panginoon, we will see each other sooner than later. Maraming salamat po at magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Thank you so much, Attorney Marge. I will now place the spotlight on Miss Lilia.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat, lalo na po sa mga reactors. Hopefully po maging partners namin kayo sa pagserbisyo sa ating mga manggagawang Pilipino. At sana po lahat ng interesadong mag-OWWA member, i-advertise ko na po. Huwag po kayo mag-atubiling mag-email sa vancouver@owwa.gov.ph. Sigurado pong sasagutin namin ng email at ibibigay namin sa inyo ang requirements at samantalahin nyo po dahil may COVID, pwede po kaming mag-online acceptance ng Interact ng OWWA membership. Dati po, personal pong appearance ang pagiging OWWA member. Yun lang po at maraming salamat sa Philippine Consulate General at magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Ms. Lilia. And now we will call on Consul General Zaldi for his closing remarks and to formally end the session of the PCG Online Forum Education Series. Congen?
Thank you very much, Vice Consul LV. I would like to thank Attorney Victorino, our labor attaché, and Ms. De Guzman, Lilia, our welfare officer, for their time and their presentation today, and for enlightening us on the programs and services of POLO and OWWA, respectively. I am sure that many of our Filipino TFWs are able to obtain guidance and information relevant to their work and stay here in Canada. I also wish to thank our reactors for this session, Marjorie, Shelo, Sherisa, salamat sa inyong oras na ibinigay sa amin. I encourage our listeners to share the information you learned today to any Filipino temporary foreign workers you know in Alberta and Saskatchewan, or refer them to POLO, OWWA, or the PCG if they need assistance or queries. The more informed our TFWs are about their rights and welfare, the better it is for our community. Thank you also to all our viewers and our participants for joining us in this online forum. Maraming salamat po, and I hope all of you will stay safe, healthy, and well.
Thank you, Consul General Zaldi. And that concludes our PCG Online Forum Education Series session today. Thank you and good evening.
Salamat po.
Thank you, everyone.
Salamat.
Bye.